Hey folks, welcome to Wake Up Charlotte to Go on a Wednesday morning.
You had to think for a second.
I had to think. I always do.
I forgot too.
I know, right? It happens. Listen, this morning we were talking about that search that's underway.
It's what everybody's talking about.
Off about 900 miles off the coast of Cape Cod, in the middle of the Atlantic, 2 miles down, for this submersible that had Titanic tourists on board, which is a thing, evidently.
About 5 of them, is
I
that
believe
right?
if
you got $250,000.
You have $250,000.
Yeah.
A little bit of good news overnight. If you're just now tuning in and catching up on the news, the Coast Guard says that they have detected underwater noises on 30-minute intervals. So a bit of good news there. We'll talk more about it coming up in just a second. But here's Jay Gray with the latest.
Good morning. Ben, the control and command center for this massive search and rescue mission is being run out of the Coast Guard office here in Boston, directing teams that are dealing with treacherous conditions, incredible logistical challenges, and now with time running short.
Additional planes, ships, specialized equipment, and rescue teams from around the world right now rushing into a 7,600 square mile search zone in the Atlantic, an area larger than the state of Connecticut.
What I can tell you is there is a full court press effort to get equipment on scene as quickly as we can.
The mission, unlike any before, and pushing into deeper water using sonar and an underwater drone. But to this point, there's been no sign of the OceanGate submersible, missing since Sunday morning, less than 2 hours after beginning a tourist expedition to explore wreckage from the Titanic with 5 men inside. The pilot and OceanGate founder and CEO Stockton Rush, British businessman Shahazda Dawood and his son Suleiman, French diver Paul-Henri Nargeolet, and billionaire adventurer Hamish Harding.
The text I got was, "Hey, we're headed down to Titanic today, exclamation point."
That text from Harding to his friend and former astronaut Terry Virts just before the journey began.
I would assume they're stuck on the bottom in the mud or somehow entangled in Titanic. It's a search and rescue mission. So first of all, they have to find them.
An effort that continues around the clock.
It's a clock rescue teams are keenly aware of, with estimates around 24 hours of oxygen now remains inside the sub. In Boston, Jay Gray, Wake Up Charlotte.
They only have, what, about a day left?
Yeah.
I cannot
It's a very
imagine.
scary situation. They're down there where they're saying that the temperature inside the sub is somewhere about 35 to 39 degrees. It's dark
Just
inside
above
there. They're basically bolted inside. They cannot, if that came to the top of the ocean,
They still couldn't open it.
They can't open
Yeah.
it. There's 5 people that are trapped in there. It's the size of a minivan. I mean, it's so claustrophobic. I don't know how anybody could stand to do that if they're only going 20 feet down.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically a giant ship helped them go down, and they were supposed to come back up, and then someone on that ship was supposed to open it from the outside.
Yep.
They were only supposed
You
to be
can't open
gone
it from the
6 to 8
inside.
hours. So you were saying even if they came up to the top by some miraculous reason and we were trying to find them,
They can
couldn't.
still die, even if they're on the surface
Yeah,
of the
they've
water.
only got
Yeah.
another day's worth of oxygen, regardless of whether they're at the bottom of the ocean or the top. You know.
And one of the guys on this expedition, a billionaire, paid $250,000 to do it. Also did one of the SpaceX flights.
I mean, it's just, first of all, it's so much money, and then it's such a risky. The waiver they signed, I saw an interview with one of the people who've been down there before. There are 10 ways that you could possibly lose your life, and you're signing a waiver saying that.
Do you remember what all the different ways are that they tell you?
He didn't go through all those, but one actually was
warned.
getting into the submersible, just getting into it. You could die. So imagine, you're basically signing your life away when you go on there. And what gets me is the fact it was so, I just hate to say, amateurishly put together.
It seems like
I mean,
it
you
was.
have a little video
Joystick.
control.
A video
joystick,
controller.
Yeah. And I saw this interview on YouTube of the guy pitching, hey, this is what you can do. Come on in, let me show you. And he's got the little device, and he just goes, oh, it's so simple. Even a teenager, we have several of these. If we drop it and something happens to it, I mean, just nonchalantly, this is something that, our submarines don't go farther down than about 2,000 feet. They're going down to the Titanic, 2 miles below the ocean. So I'm surprised that there's some sort of limitation on what people are allowed to do. But, this is free enterprise. We live in a country, if you want to sign a waiver saying you understand the risk, then you can do it, and that's what happened.
Because it does bring up questions about whether something like this should be allowed as far as this sort of tourism these sort of expeditions, if they should really be allowed to happen.
I don't know who would license that.
I don't know.
You know, then the government that's what's interfering with the government. This is free enterprise. You know, it's not illegal. There's not a law against it, and people understand the risk and responsibility when they sign that waiver to go into that submersible. So you know, I just don't understand the size of a minivan, only 5 people, and he did describe this as he's doing the interview. He says, and it's just a small platform inside with a hole in it. He said, well, there's the best seat in the house right there. That's our toilet. He said, well, pull a curtain if you need to use the bathroom.
There's a curtain that you can sit on.
That's it.
And then on top of limitations, I mean, we were talking about this while, you know, Jay was giving us the story, that when it comes to the expenditures necessary for government to now try to rescue these people. And that's not to say that there's some kind of dollar amount that you can associate to human life, because there isn't. But with no limitations and what seems like a lack of rules, I mean...
You have a lot of governments, the United States government, Canadian, I think the British are involved in it, and it's in the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. There are no laws.
Exactly.
There are no law. Once you get on the ocean, there's no limitation of what you can do. I mean, no one controls the oceans. Now, it's in our territorial waters. We have a certain amount of control as far as defending the country, but, you know, the responsibility really is the people who own that submersible, not our government, but we're helping out because we don't want people to die.
It also brings up a question about whether or not it's appropriate for people to be touring this site. It's a graveyard, basically.
Exactly.
It's a graveyard at the bottom of the ocean where a lot of people died. It was more than 100 years ago.
It's gawking.
It's gawking, literally
at history.
At history and dead bodies in the bottom of the ocean. That's just a lot of people find unsavory.
Kathleen chiming in saying miracles happen every day. I know a lot of people are hoping for a miracle. Melissa says seems silly to even go in this type of capsule. Claustrophobia wouldn't allow most of us to do it. I did see an interview too, Larry, with someone who had gone down previously, and he said that capsule had accidentally hit the boat's propeller, and he said he thought we were going to die. I mean, they made it out, but he said the fear of being inside that capsule and then going, are we okay? He said, I know exactly what they're feeling right now.
I want to make sure I've got my facts straight. I think they say that they lost contact with them about an hour and a half in, right?
So they really weren't at the Titanic yet.
Because that takes like several hours to get to.
But didn't they say once you get down, you can have contact, but once you get down past a certain level, they cannot detect them. Once they get down past a certain level, they can only via text.
Yes.
So they can't track them the whole way down.
But then I wonder, at what point did the people in the sub not realize they have contact, or like at what point did they realize, because they didn't get all the way to the Titanic before they realized they didn't have any connection. Like there's about a big gap there where I feel like surely
maybe they didn't even get down there.
Yeah, they should have realized, oh, hey, we've lost connection with them.
I think
maybe we should not continue going because...
what some of the experts say, they probably lost power. You lost all power, so there's no power whatsoever. The only thing they have is the ability to text, and maybe the text didn't go through. So with no power, that's the tragedy. That's the tragic part of this. It's completely dark.
And so if they lost power, what happens? They just sink because they can't control it, or they float around?
I did see yesterday that they can drop weight.
Yeah, ballast.
But that's like a mechanical operation that they can only do with power.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
It's not something they can do without power. So that's not an option.
My other question is, because it's about 2 miles, 2.5 miles down, why is this not connected to like a rope or something like you do with...
There's no tether or anything. They can't do that.
Why?
The submarines don't work that way. I mean, think about a 2-mile cable. It could get tangled up. It could get you could get snarled in it. You could run into it. So it's a risky situation. So there's not like a breathing tube or anything like that.
I would think that the weight of it would be... Just the sheer weight of it would be, I would think. I don't.
Well, then it could snap. It'd have to be so powerful, big giant steel cable. Probably that wouldn't work. Yeah, wouldn't work.
Well, I guess
praying for a miracle.
Yeah.
Most definitely, and we'll find
out a lot more. They get about 1 more day's
tomorrow,
worth of oxygen,
which is so scary.
The other thing that's not being discussed in all of this is, in reality, they don't have a way to necessarily go down and retrieve that.
Totally.
Oh wow.
Yeah. There's not really any good options unless they pop up out of the water. There are not a lot of good options of getting them. Just getting down to the Titanic is a Herculean effort on its own,
right.
That you plan for months, like these people did. There's not a spontaneous way you can just.
Well, hopefully this will discourage anyone from doing this type of operation again without having the tools, the necessary, equipment to take you down and get you back up in an emergency. Plan for an emergency and know what to do in a case like that.
We should say they had done this dozens of times before. The CEO had gone down dozens of times before.
Supposedly, I think he's visited the Titanic more than any other person. Anyway, folks, let us know what you think, and then we'll see you back here for another edition of Wake Up Charlotte to go tomorrow.